Hey, welcome back. We are here for yet another Solforge draft. This is a pretty interesting, very Nekrium heavy pack. Orion Justicar is fine, or Orion, I guess. Uh, it's fine, but it's definitely much better when people are playing more of the Nekrium Mutarian kind of swarm decks, and I haven't been seeing them quite as much lately, so I think I don't want to prioritize it much over the vanilla stats, which are perfectly reasonable, but not outstanding. I think Frostwild Tracker is pretty good. I'm still not entirely sure if I should evaluate this or the Nekrium version higher. I think the Nekrium has slightly better stats, but obviously the Frostwild Tracker is more likely to have a target, whereas if your opponent just doesn't have a lower level creature, the Nekrium version won't do anything. Runegrove Guardian's fine. It's perfectly solid. You definitely get drastically more value if you're able to gain a rank. However, that happens at least one time in three, maybe maybe one in two. So that's reasonable. However, I really like all three of these Nekrium cards. I think Predator is slightly above Zrath, which is slightly above Grimgone, or above Right, rather. I could actually see taking Zrath over Grimgone. Zrath is the slower, a little more controlling version. It is unfortunate that most of the zombies in the set have a higher attack than toughness. So there are plenty of zombies where you don't really get the regeneration effect, but there are some. Mostly it's just good for itself. A 5/6 with the regeneration 2 on its own is very solid. However, I think I like Grimgaunt Predator. I definitely like it more in the aggressive kind of decks, and I've been enjoying playing them a lot more lately. So take the Predator and at least strongly consider playing a more aggressive kind of deck. Matrix Warden is definitely the most powerful card here, followed by Prowler, and then maybe Necrotic Worm. But Matrix Warden is pretty top tier as far as my choices. I don't mind Alloyin, and it's possible, both of them go well into a pretty aggressive deck, and I can definitely keep an eye out for going that way. I'm liking Grimgaunt Spectre, actually. All three of these cards are cards that I definitely like, and I've won games recently. I've won, like the finals of drafts with Nether Embrace, which is pretty awesome. Certainly feels good. However, despite the fact that Grimgaunt Spectre has gone up in my estimation a lot, you can generally get one or two, and I don't necessarily want more than two. Graveborn Glutton, however, I will take infinite of. Charnel Titan is actually pretty solid. You have to be able to trigger it, so it's definitely much better if you have some of the Nekrium cards that shrink things. But it happens relatively often, and if it's a bad matchup, it's kind of like it is kind of like the Orion Justicar we talked about originally. Like, if it's not great in a matchup, then you only play it if it happens to be good. But there are some matchups where it'll trigger almost every time. So Graveborn Glutton's just the solid pick that I'll take every time. Those of you who are familiar with my stream know that there aren't many things I will take over a War Charger. This is also exactly the deck where it's best. Like, War Charger is very good at getting value. It's one of the cards that levels best that is also good at getting value at low levels. Like, it's good at mobility and getting in damage, so it's good because this deck is aggressive. However, it's also pretty good at getting 2-for-1s by killing multiple cards. So I'm going to take both War Charges here. I'm very happy with where this deck is so far. Okay, so the options here. Zombie Infantry is a fine vanilla creature. Metamind Adept is slightly weaker, but is similarly fine. I think that I like it a little more if I have a super good late game creature that I want to draw to. Y'all have seen that there aren't many things that I'll pass a Forge Plate Sentry for. The level 2 is pretty solid, and the level 3 is pretty hard to beat. It takes a lot. However, Hungering Strike is maybe my favorite spell, period. Especially heroic. How it's very good at swinging things. Like it's better than solid removal just because it can often save a creature in one lane and let you get a kill in another lane, or just push through a little extra damage or whatever. Like it does a little bit of everything that you want, and it does enough of it that it's solid. However, I think y'all probably know I like pushing for the creature heavier decks, and I think I'm going to go ahead and take a chance to take my first creature that's not super good in the first level, just to have another good finisher. Alright, this is the first pick that feels a little bit mediocre. Aegis Conscript I'm not often very impressed with. However, it's particularly good on Ionic War Charger. War Chargers are really easy to make terrifying. It is pretty reasonable to swing a trade with that. Again, Metamind Adept is fine, but when all of my creatures are solid, like I have a lot of solid creatures, but nothing is spectacular enough to really need to dig to it. If I had a Scrapforged Titan, that's a very good example of something that I would want. Munitions Drone also gets the nod a bit. I think that I like this a bit more than most people. If it sticks around, it'll generally get a card's worth of value. However, this is only good if you're ahead enough to be able to defend it. So, I think I'm going to take the Aegis Conscript here, but definitely let me know if you think I'm wrong. I think I'm going to take it because my deck is aggressive enough that the extra value of saving something may make a pretty big effect. Alright, these are actually interesting too. 2 level 1 creatures that are bad that turn into very good level 2 creatures. However, I think I am going to take the opportunity here to take the Hungry Strike, just because I want to have 1 or 2 very strong spell effects like this. Sometimes it is very nice to have a spell to be able to impact the board right away. I tend to be able to pick up 1 or 2 of these late, and Hungry Strike, being a higher rarity, is harder to get something quite that quality. And it supplements very well with having strong creatures, which, again, I'm very impressed with my creatures. Alright, Sparkblade Assassin and Sparkbot fulfill very similar roles. Sparkbot is better at level 1, but that's mostly it. But the 12-13 at level 2 was pretty unimpeachable. I definitely like Force Field more than some of the people I've seen. Being able to keep a creature alive for a turn can, there are plenty of times where 5 armor will save a creature, at which point it's done as well as playing a creature of the same quality. So that's perfectly fine. I think I will take the Gloom Reaper Witch, however, there are some times where it's just the most amazing card possible. I'm not sure on that one. Okay, this is interesting too. Graveborn Glutton versus Matrix Warden. 12-12 versus the 17-14 holds up pretty well. I could be wrong on this. I feel like the Matrix Warden has gone up enough in my estimation lately that it slightly gets the edge here. These other cards, Electronet's fine. I don't have much removal. Grimgaunt Spectre becomes fine. I like it more than Sparkbot. But really, the top 2 are just head and shoulders above the rest. Yeah, as much as I love Glutton, I think I'm going to take the Warden here. Again, it lets you pick where your strength goes, which is huge. Alright, our deck is aggressive enough that I think Technosmith is not necessarily the answer, although it would be nice to let us keep up with some of those slower decks, to have a similar amount of endgame. However, I think that the Graveborn Glutton definitely gets the nod here. It's as good as Vault Technician, only it also has this pretty relevant damage effect, which is nice. Alright, so we've got 2 Gluttons. Frankenbomb is worth looking at. It's that or Force Field, and I think that little bit of extra damage can add up pretty well. That can give us a little bit of extra reach that's hard to come by. So, Call the Week. Sometimes pretty good. The level 2 being taken up to 8 from 7 is pretty huge, actually. Sparkbot's definitely fine, but we're looking at a very solid deck of creatures. I think I'm going to take the Call of the Week here. just because we're already pretty creature heavy, and being able to take relevant things out of the way is nice. Out of the way. Tech upgrade is perfectly reasonable. I think my favorite creature to put on is the War Charger, and we've got 2 of them. Though it's also very good on Predator. Okay, this is interesting. Alloyin in general is fun. I like it quite a bit. But Glutton is definitely what the deck is all about. We have 1 Sparkblade Assassin. That's fine. I could definitely be happy with another. Deathweaver, however, is a very strong creature. But this deck doesn't have any way to get extra value out of it. While I could take it and try to go that way, I think I'm happier here taking the Glutton, just because our deck is looking very, very much like a get in there, deal damage deck. It's very rare for me to pass a Deathweaver, but I think this deck, I just want to go aggressive. Alright, Nexus Pilot is a very good creature. It's got a good body. The Marrow Fiend is fine. We've got plenty of high power creatures, though. We've got, what, 3 Graveborn Gluttons. Matrix Warden essentially also has 6 power. And the Nexus Pilot is a huge enough body. It generally takes 2 creatures to trade with at level 1. Pardon me. Or trades with a level 2 or gets some damage at least on level 2. So I think it's just better than Marrow Fiend. The spells here are fine. I'm not big on the spells that are, that become free spells. Just because I'd generally rather level a creature. Okay. These are pretty fringe, negligible cards for me. Gravegast is alright, but it would be more reasonable in a Uteran kind of pump the toughness deck. Or even a Tempest deck that had a lot of the, what are they, Bruisers that can pump the toughness similarly. Grave Pact is fine. It would be much better if I had the sort of deck that wanted the Deathweavers. I think here I actually just want the Force Field to, like I said, have a chance of keeping my creatures alive. I've been picking up more spells now, so I think I want to go back to going kind of more creature heavy. Although I'm pretty happy with the spells I've gotten. Tech Upgrade is fine. It's not as good as some of the Uteran buff spells. And I think I'm just going to take a Sparkbot for, so I don't get stuck with creature heavy hands. Pulse Mage isn't what this deck is about, but it can keep some of our creatures alive, so it's reasonable. Plus the 2/7 can actually trade pretty well. Like, it trades with, like a 6/4 or a 6/3. Like, it'll trade with a Technician, a Vault Technician, or a Graveborn Glutton. So it's not the worst body. Okay. Light Shield Patrol, perfectly fine. It gets much better at level 3. We do have 2 Matrix Wardens, which makes it a little better. Marrow Fiend is fine, but I see it as more of a defensive creature, which this deck is less in need of. Grimgaunt Spectre is certainly fine here. So the question is, do I want the 11/11 mobility, or do I want the creature that is solid, more solid at the other levels, and can become as good? I think because I've got double Matrix Warden, and also the tech upgrade is pretty fun with Patrol. I think I'll take the Patrol. I could see that being wrong, though. Okay. I doubt I'm going to get a Jetpack at this point, so the Alpha's less important. Zithian Hulk is pretty mediocre. Nether Embrace is fine. Heavy Artillery is okay. I think I'm actually going to take the Fellwalker, just because there are plenty of times where level 2 or 3 you just need a little bit of something to finish a creature off. And at that point, I'm happy to play a Fellwalker just to get a little body left over. Vengeful Spirit is a creature that I've definitely had grow on me. And it's certainly okay to have a defensive creature here. So I'll go ahead and take it. It can be a reasonable answer to some of the Forge Guardian Beta, Forge Plate Sentry kind of cards. While it will not kill them, it can at least make them a little more handleable if you absolutely have to. But definitely here, the beta is what I want. I've been getting some lower power creatures, some lower, like, not power by attack power, but lower, like, oomph kind of creatures. And Forge Guardian beta is very hard to answer in the late game. So it's nice to have something that can help get there. I don't really like either of these spells. I think that Touch of Blight is a bit better, especially because most of my creatures aren't strong enough to stick around with Necrohive. So there is a chance that I will need the Touch of Blight just to throw and kill something. Ghastly Touch is perfectly reasonable removal. How many spells do I have? I've got 5 spells. That's fine. However, I think Necro Slime is good for capitalizing if we're ahead on the board, which this deck is aiming to be. So I can get ahead on the board. I don't have anything that can really take the 3 damage hits and shrug it off, aside from, I guess, the Pulse Mage a bit. You know, just some random things that can take a little hit. Nothing can shrug it off entirely. But I think it's probably worth it because it can theoretically put on the best pressure. Also, Vengeful Spirit is fine. I would actually probably take Vengeful Spirit over Ghastly Touch just because it comes with the body. But I'm going to take the Necro Slime here just in case. Banshee has actually gone up in my view a lot. It has a pretty big effect on the board and leaves a body behind, so it's pretty nice in that way. Spectre's fine, but I'm starting to think that we'll have enough creatures that are just good at every level that we won't need to throw something down to get better for later. I think I'm going to take the Banshee here because there are so many times where it's just necessary. Alright, Fellwalker's fine. It doesn't level well enough for me to play it highly, but again, sometimes late game you just need one to block something, and it fulfills that role pretty well. Alright, these are all good cards again, but War Charger definitely edges them out. This is pretty interesting. This is a very average creature with a better level 1. However, I think we've got 3 Gluttons, we've got another Doctor, and they're both abominations, which is very nice. Unfortunately, none of our other Nekrium creatures seem to be. But I think that little bit of extra inevitability damage, I think this deck is the deck that wants it. And we've got no shortage of 6-power creatures. So, even War Charger doesn't quite count as a 6-power creature, but it's very close. Like, it's very good at getting trades regardless because of the 4-7. The 4-7 is a very good body. But I think I'll take the Frankenbomb here. Alright, so I'll be back in a minute with the first game.